welcome to the Common Geeking Program. We are a book club style podcast where each episode we discuss a different topic from our own geeky and nerdy perspectives. I am your host, Jeff Leavitt, and this week, we're maybe a little bit late on this discussion, but I feel like it's a good circle around from our last couple episodes where we looked at different multiverse media that we are finally going to be talking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This time around I'm joined by my two fellow nerds who can introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Colin. I will be quiet for a moment as the editor removes all the sounds of my crunching on snacks.
Yeah, very professional.
Hi, I'm Taeemul, or Chowder, whichever you prefer.
Are you Chowder in one universe and Taeemul in another?
Didn't we make that joke
Yeah,
last
I already
time?
made that joke last time, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say in this universe I don't make dumb jokes in the beginning, but I think we've already made the dumb jokes, so that's just a lie.
Yeah, we're fucking run clean dry of stupid multiverse jokes because holy shit, there's been so many fucking multiverse movies and properties this year. Like, I know Undone was like a season 2 of a show that came out a few years ago, but like, it's been fucking Spider-Man was this year, Doctor Strange was this year, the Everything Everywhere All at Once, Undone season 2. Is there anything else that came out this year that was multiverse?
Probably. I mean,
Probably.
Star Trek has done like 2 alternate timeline things this year. Star
That's
Wars
true. Yeah,
does
that's
not
true.
fuck with multiverse, though.
Facebook was on that metaverse bullshit, and everyone else
Oh my God.
jumped on the bandwagon of that metaverse bullshit.
That doesn't count.
So when Sam Raimi took over, he did not turn this into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because I think I might prefer that movie.
All right. Well, we're going to start off by summarizing and discussing the topic, and then end with our little rating sections where we talk about if it was enjoyable or worthwhile. But yeah, this is going to be. I don't know how this discussion is going to go. I feel like this could be a fairly dense one because I have a lot of things to talk about.
I had so few things to say. I have just remarkably little to opine.
But either way,
I have
think
like 3 big observations about the movie that explain all my small qualms and delights across the board. So
fair enough. But yeah, let's get on into the summary. So this movie, it takes place after Spider-Man, which also had Doctor Strange in it doing multiverse stuff. What's kind of interesting, and I mean, we might talk about this a bit more later.
Specifically, Spider-Man.
It takes place after all of them.
I know it's. I know it's obvious, but like these podcasts are going to be up forever, true. And so for posterity. Some people aren't going to listen to. I argue most of the people that listen to this probably aren't going to listen to it right now, and in fact, much later,
if at all. But we could talk about this later because I don't know all the details of this, but like I'm pretty sure that originally this movie was supposed to come first, like early in the production. Is that correct? Am I making that up?
This one was announced much earlier.
Yeah.
This was announced, I think, back in like 2018, 2019.
And then obviously everything got screwed up and jumbled around by COVID. And I think part of that. So as a result, there's not like you would be going into this movie thinking, oh, this is a direct result of the things that happened in Spider-Man No Way Home. And that's not really the case. Like there is a line of dialogue about how he did some stuff with Spider-Man regarding multiverse, but like this is not really like the plot doesn't pick straight up from that. It more so picks straight up from WandaVision.
WandaVision, it is so much more directly a sequel to WandaVision, and I guess WandaVision didn't surprise me a ton, but to the original Doctor Strange and Endgame, I thought at this point we would have a little less, Endgame cleanup, but it seems like the MCU is still mentally recovering from Avengers Endgame, as evidenced by the in-therapy doctor that got fired talking to him in the wedding.
Yeah. So the movie starts off with a different universe version of Doctor Strange running along with a girl who we later find out to be named America Chavez. and they get attacked by a giant fucking big scary squid demon. And that Doctor Strange ends up dying, and then she uses her power to rip a big star-shaped hole in reality, because we later find out that her superpower is to basically travel through the multiverse, and like she's the only America Chavez. There's not different multiverse versions of her, and she can travel in between the multiverses. So then we get to our Doctor Strange, who is at his ex romantic interest Christine's wedding. And the fucking squid shows up in New York City, and he goes and saves America from that. And they have this whole, introduction where they explain everything about each other, and we find out what her powers do. And so he's wanting to help her with this, so he seeks more information on multiverses, and ends up going and finding Wanda Maximoff. I guess this is maybe where I don't remember why they go to Wanda.
I think it's because we're dealing with
like
just magic of this. I haven't seen this since the day it came out in theaters.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but basically she is powerful. She has the Darkhold.
Gotcha.
And listeners, if this seems like a threadbare description of what happens, it's because this movie is that fast and threadbare. It is remarkable how quickly it moves into this conversation with Wanda, where you think, ooh, we're going to get a fun Doctor Strange-Wanda team-up, which is what all the advertising on the movie was built around. And I think one of the great strengths of the movie is that is not what happened.
Is that a strength of the movie?
I think it's a strength. I'm not saying I think the story of it is a strength. I think the fake out is a strength.
I don't know. Okay, well, this is a whole different discussion about whether or not Marvel should be so misleading with their trailers or not, because I'm never...
Oh, yeah, you've always been on the side of tell me what movie I'm getting, and I'm on the side of surprise me, daddy. So we're gonna disagree about
right.
that.
I just think that they should just show less and then leave more up to the imagination rather than purposely putting misleading things in their trailer. But I understand why they do it to a degree, but yeah, that can be a whole different discussion if we want to have it later.
Yeah, I think that's a different episode more than anything.
So at first they're kind of chatting along, well, not they, just Doctor Strange is chatting along with Wanda, and then she lets it slip that she calls America by name, and he's like, I never told you her name. And then we find out that actually Wanda is the one behind all of it, that since the end of WandaVision, she's just been nonstop studying the evil Darkhold book in an attempt to try to find her missing fake children from WandaVision. We're not going to fucking summarize the plot of WandaVision, but
yeah, but she misses her kids, and she is so singularly driven by the idea that there's a universe out there, because she saw it in a dream. And she's like, there's a universe out there where my two kids exist.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is go to that universe, murder their actual mother, and become their secret special adoptive alt-universe mother, and they'll never know the difference. Tee-hee, I'm such a loving person.
Yeah, also, I mean, we can swing back to this later, but the movie fucking just real casually drops the claim that dreams are glimpses into multiversal versions of yourself.
It does nothing to qualify that either. Not sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It's just like, dreams are alternate universes. Have fun unpacking that in therapy. Pachoo! Bye.
Yeah, I mean, if dreams are alternate universes, I'm the best runner in the multiverse, apparently, because...
Also, just wow, there's a lot of alternate versions of myself in other universes where just the universe is completely non sequitur, and 1 second I'll be Mickey Mouse, and then in fucking, the same narrative of the same dream, I'm myself as a different person, and these are all the same.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any fucking sense, but we can talk about that.
It doesn't. That's fine. I think I may know some. Anyway,
so... Basically,
what the fuck happens
Yeah,
next?
Doctor Strange is no, you can't fucking take and kill this girl to take her power. That's fucked. And so he brings her back to what is it called? It's not the Sanctum Sanctorum. It's the fucking the main one, Camartage or something like that.
I almost Camartage.
Yeah.
I almost call it Kylise, which is from Star Trek Discovery.
Oh my gosh.
Whoops.
But yeah, fucking
Whoops.
Wanda fucking follows them and does a whole out fucking assault on the temple and kills a shit ton of wizards.
So I do need to comment on this for a moment.
Yeah.
This is not a plot thing, but this is like to comment again on the structure and pacing of the movie, which is I think the thing I have the most to say about in this film. When Wanda shows up and attacks Kamartaj, it feels very much aesthetically, tonally, like it's the final fight, like a third or fourth act fight in a movie, just style. And I'm not saying the story presents it that way. It just feels that way if you compare it to even just like Shang-Chi, where, you know, that movie had a big, weird, crazy magic fight at the end. And it's maybe 30 minutes into the movie. Like, when this scene was happening in the theater, I'm sitting here like, wait, this just fucking started. It can't, what the hell is happening? It threw off my compass so hard.
It goes from 0 to 100 real fast in this movie. But yeah, so they end up escaping.
Something I do appreciate is how, like, Sam Raimi got to Sam Raimi out a bit and, like, have, like, Scarlet Witch be, like, a slasher villain or a monster in a horror movie. And just, like, do all this creepy shit.
So, I mean, some context for Sam Raimi is he's maybe most famously known for the first Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, but beyond that, like, Evil Dead and horror are his roots.
Yeah.
And the first Doctor Strange, directed by Scott Derrickson, who was fired from this movie for creative differences.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that first movie was like pretty dark and creepy. This one is much more campy horror, and I think part of what sells this as like a much bigger action scene than you'd expect is the absolute brutality with which Wanda eviscerates the sorcerers of Kamartaj.
Yeah.
It is grisly, and I was just cackling the whole time. It was big, fun, campy horror in a way that was just like goofy, and I was kind of here for it, and that persists throughout the film.
Yeah, I do sort of wish that there had been more of like, I mean, in terms of like, there's like two ways we can look at a lot of these, you know, more recent Marvel movies, in terms of just like how they are completely on their own as narratives and how they like consistently fit with the other Marvel movies. And I do sort of wish that there was more of like a line of dialogue of being like, oh yeah, the Darkhold has really taken hold of Wanda, because like you can kind of pick that up, but otherwise it's just sort of like, last time we saw her, she you know, like realized she was wrong. This time we see her, she's just chill with murdering almost anybody, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, and there's a prevailing sentiment about this film, which is this film fucks Wanda over in a big way, and I'm sure we'll get into the details on that. But anyway, I guess we can soldier on, because, again, I think I have some idea of what's going on.
Yeah, so they end up, because, you know, America Chavez's power, they end up escaping into the multiverse, go through a bunch of different universes. They're basically in search of this. I don't remember exactly when it gets introduced, but they're looking for this thing called the Book of Vishanti, which is basically,
I think that's what she was chasing in that intro sequence with the alt Doctor Strange with the squid monster.
But then Wong is the one that actually explains it. But it doesn't really matter. Basically, the Book of Vishanti is like the good version of the Darkhold that is going to give
Doctor Strange tries to insist there's no MacGuffin in this movie, and Wong's like, no, Doctor Strange, there is a MacGuffin. Yeah. You need to go get it.
I mean, to be fair, Wong has been, you know, at this magic thing way longer than Doctor Strange, so yeah, he'd probably know things that Doctor Strange did.
It does seem
he's right.
It does seem like a thing that maybe should have been mentioned or brought up literally before now, because we've had, you know, fucking bigger threats than, well, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so they end up going to a bunch of different multiverses, not really that many, and they wind up in a universe where instead of the Avengers, we have this group called the Illuminati, which basically consists of a bunch of different cameos.
They land in Cameo City.
Yeah, the group consists of the alternate universe version of Baron Mordo, who is a character from the first Doctor Strange movie, who in the post-credits ended up going evil. But we don't really see that story. We just kind of see this alt version of him. We've got Black Bolt, of the Inhumans, who is played by the same actor who played him in the shitty Inhumans show. Yes, that Marvel does not want you to know about because it's incredibly hard to find because it is not good and they are ashamed of it.
Yes,
as they should be. We've got Maria Rambeau as Captain fucking Marvel, as Captain Marvel. So, fucking...
And then we've got Patrick Stewart back as Professor Xavier in his big dumb yellow chair for the first time in the movies. We've got Captain Carter, last seen in Marvel's What If, and we have
not that
Jim
version of her, because...
From The Office.
Yeah.
Correct, not that version of her.
Yeah.
But then we have Jim from The Office, and he's the smartest man alive.
Quote,
he puts...
quote-unquote smartest man alive.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah. He does some stupid shit.
As soon as Doctor Strange shows up, he puts him in Jello.
So we'll talk about John Krasinski later because
will we?
I will. I think this is an interesting inclusion in the movie.
Okay.
But basically they explain to him that not Wanda, but in fact actually he is the biggest threat to the multiverse because their version of Doctor Strange, in an effort to beat their Thanos, basically went wild with the Darkhold and almost like threatened every reality, so they killed him.
Well, he also did destroy an entire universe, so like countless deaths on his hand.
Yeah, so they're like, nah, we're not going to listen to you about this Wanda problem. And he's like, she's literally coming here right now. And then she does. And then she brutally murders every single one of them in pretty short work.
Oh man, just give me this 8-minute fucking set piece of her shredding these fucking people, some literally. It's so fun to watch.
It was really
outlandish.
We can talk about it later, but I was super, super duper, super not a fan of this sequence.
I loved it. I loved everything about it. I think what I'm discovering as we go through this is you and I have very different levels of care and attachment to this movie.
Well,
because I'm along for the ride, and this movie is a fucking ride.
Yeah, but it's anyway. We'll get back to it. Basically, they end up escaping with this universe's version of Christine, who is, I think she's like the head of multiverse research in this world. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, and she's studying America, and America's like, you gotta let me out of here. And then
she's studying America.
Which could be topical, but it's not.
Right.
And but yeah, they essentially escape Wanda through these wet tunnels and barely get away. Meanwhile, in the main universe, I think she's found the place where the Darkhold was originally written.
Yeah, because
Wong is trying to stop her.
One of the sorcerers destroys the Darkhold, and then and basically she's like inhabiting an alternate version of herself to be here, so that's why she's in
dreamwalking
both universes at once, basically. But they go and find the place that the Darkhold was written, which basically just kind of is the Darkhold, effectively. So she can still use all of its power as long as she's there.
This same exact thing happened in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which I think tells you kind of the level of big brainness we're dealing with on a script level.
Yeah.
So they escape to the fucking room with the Book of Ashanti, but Wanda is hot on their tail, and she just follows them right in and then just destroys it. She ends up mind controlling America. Chavez, and using her power to send Strange and Christine to this like fucked up universe where that universe is
you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo.
yeah, where that universe of Strange also used the Darkhold and screwed up the whole universe, and now it's just like this dead wasteland of like universes crashing into each other. And she kidnaps America and brings her back to basically do what she wanted to do to like drain her power and have this ability for herself so that she can just like hop to new universes whenever shit goes bad with her kids. Real unhinged. They end up meeting this universe's version of Doctor Strange, who's like pretty fucked up and evil. I don't fucking remember how that encounter goes.
I know.
It was like
I know exactly how that goes. That's where they have the music fight where they're throwing
that's
at each
right.
other.
I forgot about
I
the music
love the
fight.
music fight. That I actually
the music fight
super loved.
This is to me again another level of. And I don't know if all of this comes from Sam Raimi, but like Sam Raimi and Michael Waldron sitting together and saying like, let's just do something fucking silly.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want. Let's do something silly. And the music fight, super fun, super goofy, makes absolutely no sense. Ends with the evil Doctor Strange on a spike.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then basically he's like, well, we got to get to that universe. And the only way I can do that is to fucking dreamwalk like Wanda was doing. So I got to use the Darkhold here. Like I got to stoop to her level. And he ends up possessing the corpse of the fucking Doctor Strange who is with America in the beginning of the movie, and fucking bringing his like zombie corpse and like summoning a bunch of fucking crazy demons to fight off Wanda. And basically it's a fun fight. I like the fucking zombie fight.
Yeah,
he's just going off the walls.
Zombie Doctor Strange, I love that bit. Like I know other people were like, oh, that's dumb. Why would he do that? And it's like,
well, because people were butthurt that it was zombie Doctor Strange and not there was some other comic version that the trailer made it seem like this was going to be. Like they made it look like this was going to be. So I don't know.
I think what it was is they thought that it was going to be like the Doctor Strange from the zombie universe, you know, where everyone is dead, but they can still use their powers and shit. It was one of the episodes in What If.
Oh, and what if?
Yeah,
okay.
And they thought it was going to be that, but it was really just him controlling that body, kind of as a reference to that, but not, you know.
And the movie ends basically with like, you know, Wanda is starting to steal the powers and get to her kids and brutalizing their actual Wanda mother from that timeline. And guess what, Wanda? The kids don't like that. They don't like when you assault their mom right in front of them. And she's like, oh, I guess this is never going to happen. I'll crush the whole building on myself. Yeah. And so, from all of that, Doctor Strange learns he shouldn't be chasing his ex-girlfriend now that she's getting married.
Yeah.
All that for a very basic lesson.
Yeah. Hey, if someone says no, move on.
Yeah, and don't fucking walk into their wedding with some fucking "we could have been better" speech. You fucking jackass.
Yeah, no. I mean, you want to talk about fucked up power dynamics? You can literally break the universe with your brain. Maybe don't bring that hot and heavy into a wedding trying to convince the person to leave. Because anytime you tell someone to do something, you're implicitly doing it at gunpoint.
Yeah. Also, like, what was keeping Scarlet Witch from just going to a universe where that universe's Scarlet Witch was dead, but her kids were alive, and being like... Because
she was going crazy with the Darkhold and thinking like, well, if I just go to another universe, then what if they get sick and die, and then what will I do? So it's like, it's clearly like, oh, the Darkhold has made her kind of like unhinged. She is not really following logic.
God, I would love
anymore.
to give the movie that much credit.
Yeah.
She's certainly not following logic, but I can't credit the script with justifying that.
No.
I don't even know if I can credit the script. I think now that we've sort of gotten through the summary, and that is the end of the movie, aside from the post-credits,
actually,
is Wanda kaboofs herself and Doctor Strange settles with America and everything's fine.
Okay, there are multiple things wrong with that sentence.
Yes, it does. But it's I mean... There are multiple things wrong with this movie, too.
There's a lot of shit I don't like about this movie, but one thing that, like, probably isn't actually in its favor, but I just found myself fucking dying at the entire time because of how stupid and funny it was, is because this character's name is America. And they don't refer to her ever
unintentionally
as, like,
funny lines.
The girl, or I don't even know if they were intentional, to be honest, but there'll be, like, lines where it's just like, America's power is too strong, or... quick, she's coming for America, and it's just fucking funny. And I don't think that any of those lines, like, to me, none of them read as jokes. It was just funny because it's like you realize how fucking stupid that sounds. I agree. Right?
I was laughing at that too. I think pretty early in the movie, I think it was as
they could have just called
right after they finished their little montage of jumping from universe to universe. I think that was when I sort of let go of any idea of this movie being coherent and making sense and just enjoying what I was seeing on the screen. Because this movie is directed by Sam Raimi, who knows how to make a coherent movie. He also knows how to make an incoherent movie, Spider-Man 3. But, you know. I
mean, he also knows how to make a deliberately incoherent movie because, you know, he has his roots in horror comedy, you know, like very schlocky kind of stuff. Honestly, if the movie had embraced that, if the movie had just been like, hey man, we're just gonna go wacky and silly and full Sam Raimi, I'd have been down for the ride. Unfortunately, it feels like when Sam Raimi gets to go Sam Raimi is few and far between, and most of it is just corporate Marvel MCU Disney.
You can feel the sequences that are his influence, whether you're familiar with them or not, because they're the ones that stand out. Like the stuff with Wanda dealing with gigantic power waves in the mountain is not very visually exciting. Wanda sneaking into Patrick Stewart's brain with a white background and snapping his neck with giant spiky teeth. That's weird. Yeah. Causing Anson Mount to sew his mouth shut and blow his brain out inside the helmet.
Because the smartest man in the world told her exactly what his powers do. Before he used them.
There's some important context around how this movie was made, though. Like I said, Scott Derrick no longer directing the movie due to creative differences. Sam Raimi was brought on, from what we understand, relatively late in the game. The movie is written by Michael Waldron, who also wrote Loki, and is doing punch-ups, kind of the way Dan Harmon used to do, kind of doing punch-ups on a lot of these movies. And there were a lot of last-minute reshoots on the film, presumably for Cameo City.
Yeah.
So there's a lot against this movie in terms of it making sense, and I don't think it fully overcomes them. But I think the thing that really what comes across in the final version of the movie is not so much that all these competing voices are pulling at the movie in different directions, which I think they are, but what it feels like really is it moves a little too fast. It doesn't linger on anything quite long enough. Anytime there's an idea that could be interesting, it's not explored, we move on. And it feels almost like there was an extra 20 minutes of this movie cut out in the edit. And as a result, it feels very thin. That's actually something I want to point out, is this movie is not that long. And I remember walking out of this, talking to our friend Matt, being like, I think it could have been longer. It felt so breathless, and not in a fun way, more in like, I didn't even get a chance to understand what the fuck you said, and now we're 5 mechanics down the road. And this makes me wonder, Michael Waldron, as seen with Loki, regardless of how much you enjoy it, he can write much more intricate stuff than this. He is content to explore the long-term consequences and the motivations of people making harmful decisions, and this movie is all about people making harmful decisions. At the beginning and end too, you have you have themes of letting go of the person that you love, but it spends all of 5 lines on that particular theme between the two characters, and it just I stare at this movie and all I can wonder is what didn't make it. I'm not saying that they had the materials to make this a longer movie and make it good, but there is a version of this movie out there in someone's head, maybe Scott Derrickson's head, I don't know, maybe Michael Waldron's head, where this movie makes sense. And I think once I realize this movie is not going to make sense at any point, and I mean that in just like, it is not going to be thematically rewarding or have rich character journeys,
or be
then you can just let go and enjoy the fact that like, the Sam Raimi scenes are really fun to look at. Yeah. It is a spectacle that succeeds at being a spectacle, but only some of the time.
Yeah, because, like, that's my thing, is that, like, again, like what I said earlier, like, we could look at whether or not it fits cohesively in the broader MCU, which I would say it really clearly doesn't. Like, in terms of, like, character consistency and the mechanics of multiverse stuff, it's very weird how different this is from Spider-Man, from Loki, especially since the person who worked on Loki also worked on this, but it's different in those ones, and it's kind of strange and unexplained.
It is strange. Very strange,
and very America. I think this is the same problem. I don't know if you've seen Love and Thunder yet, which I'm not gonna.
Yes,
I'm not gonna talk about in depth. But both of these.
Oh, I'm gonna talk about it a little bit too.
Both of these movies share this issue where I think that Well, I'm not going to talk about any details. I'm just saying, like, both of these movies share this issue where, as standalone, like, complete, just, like, start to finish stories, ignoring all the stuff that came earlier, ignoring any inconsistencies and any stuff like that, they don't really stand on their own because they rely on what came before as so much of a crutch to, like, set up these things and things that they expect you to already know. Like, it's not like, oh, you know, how you don't really need to have seen Iron Man to watch the first Captain America, right? Like, they're complete stories.
I think that that's a bit of a dubious criticism because this is intentionally part of something that you should have some knowledge. I think Thor: Love and Thunder in particular does a much better job of catching you up on it.
No, but let me finish my thought here. Is the issue with that is when you actually look at it in context with the stuff that it's relying upon, it doesn't make a shit ton of sense. Like, there's a lot of inconsistency with how things work, the way people act, you know, just general, like, tone of the universe and how people in the world act that doesn't line up. So when you have, it's sort of like it's sort of like, oh, they're relying on, you know, these previous universes to, like, tell this ongoing narrative, but they're not actually paying attention to what that ongoing narrative was, so it doesn't really line up. So it kind of reaches, for me at least, the worst of both worlds, where it's just like, you know, if this was really inconsistent and didn't match up with the stuff that came before, you know, I can be like, well, is this still a movie that's fun on its own right? Is it still good on its own right? And it's impossible to think about it on its own right because it completely relies upon you having seen the previous movie.
I think that this movie, I think that there are a few dynamics that I would argue are maybe more prevalent than reliance on previous movies. I think part of what's happening here is that these movies, Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, compared to their immediate predecessors, Doctor Strange, Thor: Ragnarok in particular, I don't think these movies hold up on their own quite as well. I think Thor does a better job of giving you everything you need to know within the movie to understand it. I don't think Multiverse of Madness totally succeeds there. What I think might be happening to an extent is that you've got movies that are internally not super robust or consistent narratively, thematically, from a character standpoint. And so you're left to look at the rest of the universe for answers because people weren't sitting there watching Thor Ragnarok saying, this totally disrespects the Dark World, which it does just as much as Love and Thunder disrespects other things.
I wouldn't say as much,
but like Ragnarok,
yes.
but Ragnarok was such a strong movie in its own right that it was like, who cares? I'm along for the ride. And I something I like about cinematic universe is it's also something I really like about Star Trek Strange New Worlds is you have something that can be the same story but can be tonally different and can embrace different styles, different things.
Embracing different styles and different tones is one thing. For me, it's just like the way the characters act and the way the mechanics of the world, like the world building doesn't match.
I don't even care. I don't even care about the mechanics
of
the world, but
for me the problem with Multiverse of Madness is that you can't really relate to the characters because like take Wanda for example, right? You need to watch WandaVision in order to actually get what she's about.
And even then it's a huge jump.
It is a jump
to get what she's about. And it's just like, if you haven't watched WandaVision, she just seems she's like going, I've made mistakes and I'm the villain, and you've made mistakes, but you get to be hailed a hero, and it's like that doesn't really jive.
That doesn't hold up.
It doesn't make sense. Not because it's failing to pick up from WandaVision, but because it's failing to explore it in its own right.
Well,
you can do these things and have departures. But the failure, I think, is on this movie being internally consistent and coherent. And again, looking at, like, what did we miss? Part of the reason Wanda feels like she got done dirty so badly is you're watching the whole movie and all she keeps saying over and over again is, my kids, my kids, my kids, my kids.
Yeah.
Except these aren't her kids. The movie doesn't talk about where they come from. For if you're looking for other things to get picked up on, Vision is completely out of the picture.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, we've gotten so little of her. She is so one-dimensional. Literally one-dimensional. Literally a line from the beginning of the movie to the end, that at the end when she tries to say like she's learned and she's sacrificing herself, within this movie, you haven't seen that journey.
Yeah.
This movie's failures are on the character level primarily. I think this is a symptom of the multiple voices behind the scenes, of the editing, and whatever was cut down, because maybe there were more conversations in the script. I would like to hope that there were about what Chowder said, like, you're the villain, I'm the villain, you're the hero. Why is that? Let go of things you love. Like, these themes can be explored in a way that forgives the inconsistency in the universe, but because the movie doesn't give that to us, we're forced to look at the universe and say, well, that didn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I think the problem is at the core of this movie, not at the core of the MCU, but if this and Love and Thunder in their trend keep things going this way, this could prove to be a big problem.
Honestly, I hope that they do, because if we really keep going this way and Marvel consistently tosses out a few movies that are not good, then maybe fucking Disney will just let it die eventually, which is, I think, the best thing overall.
No, they did Rise of Skywalker, and now we're 9 shows into the Star Wars franchise. So no, they're not going to let it die.
Two of them are just rehashes of The Mandalorian. I mean, Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan are just Mandalorian again. But my thought is, now that we've been discussing this, I'm starting to think their biggest mistake was bringing in the Illuminati. Like, all this time is spent on Cameo. All this time is spent on Cameo City. That they don't have the time to flesh out the ideas that were introduced earlier. Wanda doesn't get to be fleshed out because she's too busy serial killing the Cameo characters. Doctor Strange isn't fleshed out because he's too busy bickering with the Cameo characters. There's a chunk of this movie where if you just took it out and scaled down the or take the scale of the movie down, you could have given yourself more opportunity to, let everything breathe.
And it makes me wonder if at some point when Raimi was handed the directive to include these cameos, he was like, all right, this thing's going to collapse under its own weight. I'm going to have some fucking fun with it. And I'm glad he did. If you're going to make these movies short and nonsensical, at least make them fun to watch or wild.
Fair.
That's kind of what kept me going, is those spikes of insanity where all right, I'm not really enjoying the story, but I do like Jim from The Office getting turned into spaghetti. I like that a lot.
Here's my thoughts. I don't mind a scene where Scarlet Witch kills the Illuminati. My problem is half the Illuminati are killed in very boring ways. Peggy just gets killed by her own shield, and
no, Peggy got cut in half. That's cool. I mean, yes, killed by a shield is one way of saying it. No, she got split in two when we watched her torso fall off her legs. That's fun. You don't usually see that in a Marvel movie.
Captain Marvel just gets crushed by a building or by a statue.
That sucked.
Here's the problem with
also that wouldn't kill her, right?
That wouldn't.
That's why.
Here's the problem with the Black Bolt thing. It's just it doesn't feel believable. One, just Mr. Fantastic just giving out his weakness right then and there, but also it's an easily rectifiable problem. Just have Black Bolt try to use his voice power on her. She teleports out. She observes, oh hey, mouth. Then you can have the whole thing where she makes his mouth disappear and he blows his own head off.
All you're doing now is drawing out the sequence that we're saying took too much time out of the movie.
No. You can just have him not try to have Mr. Fantastic not try to speak to.
Oh yes, no, yeah. Again, the only way I can enjoy this movie is if I don't give a shit about the characters.
Yeah.
If I start trying to empathize with any of these characters, it falls apart. Especially because, you're talking about Cameo City. One thing that shouldn't have been a cameo was fucking Mordo. Yeah. Chiwetel Ejiofor come back as his character, potentially the greatest foil for Doctor Strange's ideologies. All we get is this alt-universe him that hated him in this universe too, and projects that hate onto this Doctor Strange. And it's like you can't connect to any of it because there's nothing going on to show you why Mordo feels this way aside from Doctor Strange bad.
Yeah, it's sort of like
we don't get to connect to anything that happened in the previous movie, and we don't get given anything new in this one.
It's sort of like this is Doctor Strange 3 referencing things that happened in Doctor Strange 2, but we just deleted that one from the timeline.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. You know, like we can't see what he's referencing. We know it's there, but it's just the character arcs in this movie are shortcut after shortcut. Yeah. So I promise, anybody listening to this, we're really ragging on this movie, but like it can still be fun to watch. Honestly, if you go into this and you are just like, I'm not going to give a shit about these characters, I think that's the only way to really sink into it, because you're right, Chowder. Mr. Fantastic should not have said those words, but I mean, at that moment, we were not in a Marvel movie anymore. We were in Sam Raimi campy schlocky horror.
But like,
I guess just
also,
for me,
maybe he just shouldn't have said all the stuff about, hey, I have kids, I understand, and then Scarlet Witch is like, I don't care if you empathize, I'm just gonna kill you anyways. And it's just like, you know, if they just came in and started a fight, probably would have been better. Because then it wouldn't signal to us to empathize.
Again, it seems like in the script that was leading to a bigger conclusion, but it just got fucking cut off at the knees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing with it, too, is that, like, again, back to the note of, like, oh, should the Cameo Council have existed at all? I do want to kind of steer this around to, like, something that I kind of started talking about in our episode on Everything Everywhere All at Once, is that like the way that this movie is a multiverse movie. Multiverse is in the title of the movie, but the way that the multiverse is actually used in this movie is just a vehicle for delivering these cameos instead of taking a look at the actual mechanics of the multiverse in any depth or doing anything else like broader or more interesting with it in ways that you like wouldn't immediately expect, right? So it's like we spent so much time on like this Cameo Council, which basically like yes, if you just want to watch some people in a movie you don't care about get murdered, I guess sure, but like if in terms of like the believability of these characters or whatever, right? They're presented like they're supposed to be big shit, and they're like, you know, like but it's just like, oh, these are the same as our universe people, except they clearly don't have plot armor, so they can just all get immediately murdered. And it's just like it's just like a huge gaping like meta narrative hole that just like feels like, okay, this just doesn't, you know, like the only reason this was able to happen is because like, and you know, it's one thing if they went in there and they like more apparently made this group of people like obviously full of shit, right? So it's just like, oh, they're all big talk and they're all, you know, it's like they fucking call themselves the Illuminati, which they don't really make too much of an issue of just because it's a comic reference, right? But it's just like, you know, you could play up the value that this is a bunch of fucking morons who have been put into positions of power and think they're like top shit, but they're not really, and then it's more gratifying when you see them all get murdered. But instead, the movie wants to have its the movie wants to have its cake and eat it too, where they're like, hey, we get the points for doing these cameos and making them feel like they're believable characters in the way that they talk and the way that they interact, but we're just gonna murder them as a big pack of nerds. But they don't really fucking like...
We're staring the answer right in the face. We've talked about it so many times. Reed Richards is the smartest man alive on this whole planet. And he did something colossally stupid. Therefore,
they're all dipshits.
Everyone in this entire world is really, really, really dumb. It explained itself perfectly.
Yeah, but how are they really dumb and then also are the fucking, like, leading universe in multiversal research? Like, it's a complicated field. And Christine's not stupid. She's smarter than fucking Mr. Fantastic.
I don't know. We never gave her the chance to kill Black Bolt like that.
True.
No, but you're right. The utilization of the multiverse as a mechanic in this movie, like, even if you put aside the idea of, like, it is always interesting.
I'm going to be real. I don't think they even utilize the multiverse. It's really just an excuse for a setting change, you know? Like
Okay, definitionally, they did utilize it, just not to a great extent. And I think part of what's interesting about sci-fi, and I know I'm a big proponent of this, is it is fun to understand the rules of how the sci-fi world works and see how things fit together, and sometimes to see how things don't fit together and pick it apart like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But the movie does not try to engage in it that way in terms of the mechanics, but it also doesn't try to use it to reflect on the characters, at least not in the end product.
No.
At the end of the movie, it seems as though there was an intention for us to understand that Doctor Strange's conversations with Earth 838, the alt universe version of Christine, was supposed to help him achieve some sort of peace in letting go the Christine from his universe, which could be a pretty salient storyline. And that, again, mirrors what could have been a complex journey for Wanda, her seeing something in an alternate universe and using that as a lesson to make a change in her own direction and life and mind.
But the movie,
seems like that was the idea. The movie does not communicate that. We're not spending the time exploring these multiverse characters in this way. But it's just showing them to us and then moving on.
This is another part of it where I actually I don't really think that the like Sam Raimi sequences really helped the movie. I mean, I think that in the shit show that the movie was, they were the most fun thing that was in it. But
correct.
I think that
is my point the whole way through.
For sure, but like the movie, I think gets really bogged down with its own gimmicks of like these cameos, and then frankly, the Sam Raimi sequences are also gimmicks, right? And because it has so many different gimmicks from Sam Raimi and from the studio requirements or whatever the fuck, it doesn't have enough time to like sit down and breathe and explore the characters literally like really much at all.
Yes.
And
this is what I've been saying the whole time.
I'm agreeing with you.
It is just I have such a hard time digging into the minutia of anything else because like this is the sin of the movie is it presents these characters and tells us that they've gone on journeys and shows us like half the puzzle pieces to see what those journeys are.
Yeah.
And that's it. You cannot really look at this movie and say that any specific character journey is as fleshed out as some of the stronger Marvel outings, particularly the first Doctor Strange. I think that movie did an excellent job of painting where he was at the beginning and bringing us on his journey to where he was at the end, to selflessness. And this could have been an extension of that. And I have to believe that somewhere on the script side of things, it was at one point. But once again, the movie doesn't deliver on it. And it's just, how can you care about anything else in the movie that much when this level of it fails? It looks great. It's got great performances. It's stylish. It's funky. But like, if you try to care about it too deeply, you run into exactly what Jeff just said. And that's it. That's the wall.
Yeah, and it's like,
you either get over it or you don't.
It's it's funny too because it's like when you bring in like the individual characters of the council, right, the Illuminati, like so much of it is pandering. Feels like a strong word, but like
fan service.
Yeah, it's fan service, but it's a weird sort of fan service where it's just like it was like a big deal for me, at least, not like a big deal like, oh hell yeah, but a big deal of like, oh, they made that choice of casting John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic because there has just been fan art on the internet of the past several years of people being like, hey, John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, it would be a great idea. And it's sort of just like a weird thing where it's just like, sort of feels like you shouldn't have done the thing that we all asked for, because it's like, I don't know, it sits in this weird sort of like fucking clearly reactionary to what people are saying rather than the studios making their own decisions for good reasons, if that makes sense. Not that I think that he would make a bad casting. You'd hardly know it in this movie because it's like, well, he just gets killed almost immediately, but you know, like I think he would make a good Mr. Fantastic. There's just some weird sort of element to it of like, you shouldn't do the thing that all of the fanboys are asking for because then they'll think that they can ask for more stuff, kind of thing. Like, it sort of sits somewhere near in the same ballpark as changing Sonic's design, you know? Where it's just like, maybe, yeah, but...
I don't know. I can't even have that many strong feelings about it because given that it is multiverse, we've seen that they will have the same actors play the same characters across different universes. We've also seen instances where they don't. Yep. So they're not committing to anything. And it is just a stupid cameo.
Yeah.
So at that point, what does it matter? You got nothing to lose. Again, I'm wondering if at some point the directors, producers on this movie were like, all right, it's already a mess. Might as well just, fucking throw it all out with the kitchen sink.
Yeah, no, it's...
Go crazy. Whatever. It's if the movie was...
I guess I wanted to say, like, ultimately this, like, when I say they don't really use the multiverse concept, I mean they don't really use it much. It's really just an excuse for a scene change, you know? Like, there's basically 2 different multiverses we actually inhabit. The original and Cameo City. That's it. And
the dead one at the end. But
yeah. Oh, yeah, and then a dead one.
But don't forget that we did get to use one that we never actually saw to bury the gays that are America Chavez's moms.
Yeah, but, like, that's just a flash, like a 10-second flashback. It is.
I cannot believe that so many countries were putting up shit over displaying the LGBTQ scene in this movie, and all it was 2 lesbians getting sucked into a portal to their death. Yeah. That's all it was. I was so mad. Yeah, exactly. I was so infuriated. Like, this is so fucking lazy.
Also, it's just like, in terms of like the multiverse stuff too, right? Like, to Chowder's point,
they don't really use it to create foils. Like Colin mentioned, they tried to, but doesn't really go that way. They don't really go to enough scenes to make it feel worthwhile as a mechanic in this movie.
By comparison, Undone only shows 2 potential universes, and that feels sprawling. And everything everywhere all at once, when it goes to other universes, with a couple exceptions, it's all pretty mundane with people just being goofy. And yet that still feels more intricate. And this movie has the tools to go bigger, better, badder.
Yeah.
And doesn't. And I understand from a script standpoint why you maybe wouldn't want to lean too hard into that, especially because we still don't know the direction of MCU's Phase 4. We don't know what they're trying to, like, leave for later. But it is underused to the point where you have to ask, like, is this really the Multiverse of Madness, or is this just doing dirty female characters across the whole script? Is that all this is?
Yeah, really. Yeah, and it's also just weird, too, because it's like, if you compare it to Loki or Spider-Man No Way Home, the mechanics don't even, like, totally line up, right? Like, there could have been some sort of... Well, I don't know if it is fine, in my opinion, anyway.
It is. Who cares? You can't
I care.
Whatever.
What do you mean? You can't just say who cares because that's your opinion, and that doesn't invalidate mine.
Who cares is... No, it does not invalidate your opinion. Who cares is my opinion. Like, the movie did not convince me that it is taking many other things outside of this film super, super duper seriously. Yeah. Again, I have trouble caring about any of the things you care about in this movie because the movie did not convince me it cares about itself.
I guess for me, the reason that I'm, like, in this block of caring about it a bit more is this was the first one for me, the first Marvel movie that I'm like, this absolutely is like, okay, this is a clear, humongous step down from, like, you know, like, there's been, you know, movies that have been not as good before, but this is the first one that is just like, I can't even really justify a lot of the inconsistencies here. So this is like
this is the first time that you've been, like, really bumped out of an MCU property?
For the most part, yeah. There's other ones that I've been like, that wasn't great, but whatever.
Oh, I've long since reconciled frustrations with fandoms not really holding up to scrutiny, to be generous.
Well, yeah, but I mean, because, I don't know, just like the stuff with the different multiverses, right? It's just like, well, we see Spider-Man, and the 2 different multiverse versions of him are different actors. And then in Loki, who notionally we're not even talking about multiverses, but different timelines, ? Even though several of them are played by different actors. And now we've got Doctor Strange, where everyone in every other universe is actually the same actor, and it's just like, okay, well, maybe there's just some broad, you know, like, you could have some dialogue about, like, oh, this is the specific sect of multiverses that America is able to bring us to, but then we also have this, you know, this montage of going through the different universes, and one of them is animated and one of them is paint, so it's like, okay, well, that blows that, you know, consideration out of the water. It's just like, it's a weird inconsistency that is like, you know, if it were a better movie, that would be the kind of thing that I'd be like, okay, well, you know, I don't need that to be consistent, but
that's kind of my point, is that, like, I think you and I are just riding this scale in different directions, where, like, this being a worse movie makes me not try to worry too much about those minutia. And it being a better movie would actually make me care about those things maybe more, be forgiving about them, but be invested in them more. But I'm so not invested in the movie that I'm just like, whatever. I mean, we have 20, 30, 40 hours in the MCU so far. Most of it's good. I'm fine if 2 of them are not great.
Yeah, I guess my issue is just that, like, with these 2, right, with Love and Thunder and Multiverse of Madness, because of the more recent 2, it's just like, oh, this feels like the direction that it is going. And there have been hints of it in earlier ones where I was like, I'm not, I think that fucking Eternals gets more flack than maybe it's due, but I think that there are
I like Eternals.
issues in that movie in terms of like the overall world building that screw up some things. And even No Way Home, I thought was a very good movie on its own right, but there are some issues in that movie. But it just kind of feels like, okay, I have noticed the MCU for a little while moving into a trend of like, okay, turn off your brain a little bit and, just let it be a popcorn flick. These were the first 2 that I'm just like, okay, I don't actually have enough here to enjoy underneath the things that I'm having to turn off my brain for. So it's then it just circle back to like only thinking about all the inconsistencies and the ways that their own narratives don't make sense.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I don't want them anymore.
This is where being a Star Trek fan has like prepared me for this. Because it is a franchise full of retcons and inconsistencies and canon screw-ups and character shifts. And it's like, the other thing is that I'm not just interested in watching these things. I like to pay attention to their production as much as I can. And at the end of the day, if you have a universe where it's constantly changing hands, who's writing, who's producing, who's directing, who's designing the overall story, and who's enforcing it on the lower levels, like the execution is shifting so much on so many levels. I've completely let go of the expectation that all of these things will be totally consistent. I think it is interesting to discuss when they are not.
Sure.
But I don't think it's necessarily instructive.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion on it.
I guess it's just for me is like
coming from Star Trek, it's just like I have seen so many more egregious alterations that are just like, we're here for fun.
I guess for me it's just like like before, right? Like let's look at the MCU pre-Endgame, right? There have been inconsistencies and things that don't hold up under scrutiny in terms of like, like recontextualizing what things are so that, the MacGuffins of previous movies become the Infinity Stones, and then some, and like recontextualizing Thanos' whole idea because like we haven't really given him a motivation up until that point. Some of those things don't hold up under scrutiny, but I think that the decisions that were made to, that broke canon in a sense were all in their respective movies' favor. Whereas I think that these 2 especially, it was like all the things that break canon or whatever are actually not in the movie's favor, like in and of themselves, and they're, I think, much bigger, obvious contradictions that like, so it's just like a thing where it's just like, I'm not having enough fun with them to just enjoy them on their own right. Whereas just like, if like comparing this to like, I've been thinking about like how I think about like some of the DC movies, right? Whereas just like most of those movies are bad. And every time that there is a good one, if it fucking breaks any sort of canon with the rest of the DCEU, I'm like, well, who gives a shit? All those movies are bad. We're not really loyal to those movies, right? Like, the fucking Suicide Squad can change whatever the fuck it needs to about Suicide Squad, and that's totally fine because it's a better movie, right? Like, Birds of Prey can, have inconsistencies with the previous ones because it's a more enjoyable movie. Whereas the MCU, I think it lands into kind of the opposite problem where it's just like, I think that the movies actually had been quite strong together for a long time, and those, it's broken down a little bit over time, and this feels like, for me, like, kind of an even bigger jump in that direction of the seams kind of falling apart. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering how many times you have. I know you're a Transformers fan, so I maybe shouldn't even ask this question, but like how many times have you followed a franchise that you care about and like has its ups and downs, but then you hit something that you just straight up don't connect with and you're like, I wish this didn't exist?
Well,
like, is that something you
here's
encounter
the
a
thing
lot?
about Transformers, like, which each iteration they just wipe the slate clean and just start over. So
exactly,
it doesn't run into that problem. Okay. It doesn't have a
this is exactly what I was about to say. Is that like with things like that, where the universe that, or not a universe, but like a franchise that is constantly being rebooted, right? If there's one that I don't like, it does not inform the others. Whereas with the MCU, I don't feel that way as much. Is like when because it's all notionally supposed to coexist together.
Then I have a big question for you to follow up. Do you consider yourself a Star Wars fan?
Casually. I don't,
Yeah, yeah, because I'll say this: I was always casually a Star Wars fan, and it wasn't until The Last Jedi. Because here's the thing: I've said this a lot of times before. Star Wars, the first movie is Star Wars. The second movie is Star Wars 2/5, and every other Star Wars after that is about the first Star Wars, about recreating it or getting back to it in some sense. And The Last Jedi was the first movie that was like,
you mean episode
A New Hope?
Yeah, that's what I figured.
A New Hope, yes. So the original Star Wars, everything is about getting back to the original Star Wars, and The Last Jedi is the first movie since Empire Strikes Back that was like, I'm gonna do something different.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
For me, and it did it didn't, but like it felt so fresh, and that was the movie that was like, oh shit, I'm into this now. And for a lot of people, it was, oh shit, I am out of this now. And then when they went and did Rise of Skywalker, nobody was like, this fixed Last Jedi. They were like, this bad.
Yeah.
This no bueno. And it's very much the same experience I had watching this movie, which is like, I was hooked with the promise of doing something different. Good, bad, I don't know, but different at the very least. And then I got Rise of Skywalker. And then I was like, oh, this franchise is not interested in the things I thought it was interested in. I am not going to care about this anymore. And I tune in when I'm interested and I tune out when I'm not. And that is what it was like for me to watch this movie. Is I was like, this movie is not going to give me what I'm looking for. Let me find the stuff in it to enjoy.
I think that's valid. I think I'm just hitting a point where I'm having to let go of my attachment of the MCU because I feel like the broader narrative of it for so long, I think, was something that I was a really big proponent of. And it's hitting the cracks now. It's just like, the first showings of that for me are going to be the things that irritate me more. Where it's just like,
well, that's because in the last fucking calendar year, we've gotten 6 movies, 5 TV shows, and there's no sense of unity between them, which is like, okay, cool, that's your prerogative, Disney.
Which is like,
but
odd because
it is just, as Jeff is saying, serving to elucidate some of these more core issues with some of the individual films.
Which is odd because when the MCU started out, one of its selling points was how cohesive it ultimately felt, but I guess it's got to fall apart at some point. I guess it's falling apart now. I mean, in my mind, the MCU is running into
a moment of stress.
In my mind, the MCU is running into the same problem that the comic books they base themselves off of are, which is just that which is just that they are increasingly relying on like you being familiar with supplementary materials, struggling with like figuring out the scale, and just having its characters just feel believable after a while, just because it's just going on,
Yes, let's move on to the rating section of this episode. All right, thank you both for a very energetic discussion. This time around, let's rate the topic on a scale from 1 to 10. I mean, like, the obvious thing is like different versions of Doctor Strange, right? But that's so fucking boring.
Yeah, but we didn't even get 10 versions of Doctor Strange.
That is true. All right, we're doing 1 to 10 hot dog fingers again.
Pizza balls.
Oh, fuck, that's right. I forgot about the pizza balls. Wait, 1 out of 10 times that Bruce Campbell is left punching himself for like 3 hours off screen?
1 out of 10, Bruce. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, Colin, how'd you feel?
Yeah. Honestly, for all the shit I've said, I was very able to, like you said, turn off my brain. And like, this might just be the Star Trek fan in me. Like, there are entire series of Star Trek I don't like, and they definitely are canon and absolutely inform other parts of the franchise. And I'm just like, okay, I don't really like that stuff that much. That's fine. And that is really how I felt about this movie. Like, I watched it. I did have fun watching it. Like, the scenes that were wild and goofy, I was so disconnected from the story personally that I was just like, I'm gonna have fun watching the fun parts. And the parts that aren't fun, I'm not gonna worry about it again. The end result is, I'm probably not gonna rewatch this movie for fun. It moved some of the pieces on the chessboard in important ways for the MCU, not in a direction that I can scrutinize because I don't know what's coming next. But, like, as a movie on its own, if this was the first Doctor Strange, I would not like Doctor Strange very much because it absolutely does not give any meat to his character beyond, like, some pretty superficial decision-making and a journey that's not explored. And my heart breaks for the movie that is 20 minutes longer than this one, that really dives into the themes that drive these characters, that really pays attention to their motivations and plays with the multiverse in a way that interacts with those motivations. Like, you don't need that much more to do it. And much like Love and Thunder, I feel like it's on the edge of breaking through to being more coherent. And that's just my view on it. Honestly, 6 out of 10 though, because if you're okay with the fact that this is not one of the stronger MCU entries, it's visually interesting.
Hot take, this might be my least favorite one.
I mean, that's fine.
Dark World is so much more boring than this, but
that's the thing.
I
was watching. I liked Dark World when it came out, but when I went through the MCU again last year for funsies, I hit Dark World and I was like, I would rather be asleep. And this movie did not make me feel that way. And that's its saving grace. And I said this to Matt when we walked out of the theater. I was like, Sam Raimi and his crew. Yeah, Sam Raimi and his crew, they looked at this, they looked at what they were handed, and they said, all right, this might not make sense, but it's going to be fun to look at. And, like, if you know you're going to make something that's not going to quite hold together, fucking swing for the fences. And those crazy scenes that make Reed Richards dumb and blow up Anson Mount's head for no reason, like, those are the scenes I live for because those are not boring scenes. It does not have the sin of being boring, just of being a little bit dumb.
A lot of it.
So 6 out of 10, because I think you can have fun. And if you're not here to have fun, I don't know, like, take this as what you will, but if you're here to just enjoy things happening on your TV screen in front of you, I think you can do that. I don't think it is a very enriching movie beyond that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on too different a page here. Like, you know, I've probably, like, ragged on this movie throughout this episode, but, like, my overall opinion is really just, meh, it's fine, it's okay. Like, when Sam Raimi gets to, like, go full Sam Raimi, I'm into it. I love his schlock horror.
I would have loved if it was all, like, horror, like Wanda is, like, the slasher
Yeah,
villain.
exactly.
Like, if they went all the way in that direction, I'd be there
exactly.
for that.
Yeah, my overall feeling was just meh, and, you know, with, like, occasional, like, jumps of excitement when, like, Sam Raimi gets to do his Sam Raimi thing, but, like, you know, this movie just lacks that panache, that oomph, that, like, I don't know, I feel like
any relatable person at all in the whole 2 hours.
Yeah, that, like, a hyped up movie should have. Like, if Disney's just gonna, like, swallow the whole movie industry, at least don't be mediocre. Because, like, you know, right now, like, Disney's just doing some freaking mob Yakuza bullshit where they're just, like, pushing other movies out and just filling it with their stuff. And
see, we're saying this, but this is one movie removed from fucking Spider-Man No Way Home, which is we all praised and lauded, and Shang-Chi, which was very strong. Like, this is one turd.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they were doing it then too.
They were doing it then. I'm not saying this is where it started. Now I'm mad. I'm saying this is how I've.
That's fair.
This is how I've been feeling, and it's, I guess, this is without, like, a good, without, like, a fantastic movie. it just can't distract me anymore. But like overall,
this was a fantastic movie.
Shut up.
Okay.
But overall, it just doesn't coalesce together. But at the same time, there are fun bits in it. Just so you know, I'm super lukewarm ultimately, and just 5 out of 10 Bruce Campbell punching himself. Well,
okay.
Which I always consider 5 out of 10 a middling thing. So, yeah.
And for me, I think I'm gonna land a little lower on this one. For me, it's just like
light this motherfucker up, Jeff. Light it up.
If there's issues that I have in a movie, it can be outweighed by the fun stuff in the movie. For me, I guess I don't connect as much to the fun aspects of this movie. Like, honestly, I think my favorite thing about this movie was not even intentional. The thing that was making me like smile the most during this movie was just like the fucking 10 or so lines where they would just refer to America by her first name. And
we need to save America.
Yeah, like I was just like, that's so fucking stupid. I love it. Not like, I would have more of a problem with it in a good movie, but like I was just like, that's fucking dumb, and I'm fucking here for it because it's stupid. But I don't think it was like an intention of the movie. So it's like for me, it's like the issues just like far outweigh the like enjoyable aspects. Like I liked the music fight, all right, but like that doesn't save the movie for me. And I think some of the other things that you guys really enjoyed, I think were also things that took me out of the movie. So I'd probably say like maybe a 2 or 3 out of 10. Probably a 3 because like there's worse stuff, I guess, but like
there's worse stuff, I guess.
But like I was not a fan of what
I
this
do
movie
have
had
to
going
join
on.
you on the page of my favorite thing about it was a bit of meta
stuff.
Because this movie, the same day this movie came out was the day that Star Trek Picard Season 2 ended and Star Trek Strange New Worlds premiered. And the captains of both of those shows got fucking massacred in this movie. And I really, really like that.
Wait,
I was just sitting there like, hey, Picard and Pike. Yeah, Anson Mount. He's Captain Pike in Discovery and Strange New Worlds. Yeah, that's Captain Pike, baby.
Man, the fucking hairstyle that they give him recontextualizes the shape of his face so much.
It does, yeah, right? There's been a lot of talk about his hair in Star Trek. It is mountainous, Johnny Bravo-esque. But that was like the biggest thing walking out of that movie was, I got to see the 2 captains get murdered. That's fun.
That's true.
I just moved
on.
Yeah,
that's another thing I really liked about this movie, and this was like the one thing that I completely unironically liked about this movie. Fucking big stupid yellow chair on Professor X is long overdue, and I'm fucking here for it. I wish it stuck around.
Have you seen like the GIF/video of like Professor X like going down a ramp and then doing like a doing like grinding on a rail
of Tony Hawk grinding on a rail and like fucking doing donuts behind everyone else. It was really funny and really well done.
But I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening to the Common Geeking program. Again, I've been your host, Jeff Leavitt. If you want to find me, I have a YouTube channel where I do toy reviews. That's Alchemist Prime Reviews on YouTube. And again, I've been joined by Colin and Chowder. What do you guys have to toss out there?
I'll have some more stuff soon, but for now, keep tuning in to Dice Populi. I'm doing a lot of stuff with that. Started a new adventure. It's pretty fun. I'm working on a video thing for it right now that is... I meant for it to be a lot less work, and now it's a lot more work.
Story of my life.
I'm wrestling with my choices right now, but you shouldn't wrestle with those choices. Go listen to it. I'm very proud of it.
Hi, I'm Taeemul or Chowder, whichever you prefer. You can find me on Twitter at Taeemul_Chowder. I do art stuff there, and that's really about it. I'm also on Dice Populi, so check that out. Yeah.
Good shit. But yeah, our next episode of the podcast is going to be another common briefing program where we look at news for the month of June. What month is it? July. That's the month that it is. And that will be airing on the first Friday in August 5th. And then our next proper episode will be airing on or around the third Friday in August, the 19th. And I have no idea what that's going to be about. I think we should probably, for our own sanity, break our goddamn multiverse streak. But I thank you for listening, subscribing, sharing, and everything that you do, and we'll talk to you next time.
Ciao. Or in an alternate universe. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry, you
can
continue about Deltarune now. I just wanted to finish the podcast.
This episode of the Common Geeking Program was joined by Jeff Leavitt, joined by Colin Ketchen and Taeemul Chowdhury. The Common Geeking Program is created by Jeff Leavitt and Colin Ketchen, with music by Colin Ketchen. This episode was edited by me, Taeemul Chowdhury. This episode was brought to you by Multiverse Exhaustion. 9 out of 10 doctors say it is the leading cause of existential dread. And the last one says it's just a bad case of capitalism. Anyways, if you like what you heard, come check us out at commongeekingprogram.com. You can find more episodes there. Maybe give it a share. Who knows? As always, thank you for listening to this podcast. Ciao!
This is our brief, calming intermission where we take a break from talking a mile a minute about this movie, and we just slow down and we listen to some nature sounds. Just sit with your breath and just real slowly breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth.